Folks, we are live. Illinois had a really kind of a coast, kid. You wanted 100 points, they gave you 12 plus. This was nice. I'm not saying that this is an indication for a great season, although I think this team has a high ceiling. But boy, it was nice to see them go out and really crush a team that they're supposed to really crush.
They are. That's what good teams do. I know against Ole Miss, a lot of people were a little disappointed, but you got to remember this is a totally different group that's never played together. They're starting to understand their roles. I saw things tonight that I hadn't seen before, so it's going to take time. And that's what these games are for. These games are to get some confidence, see what your players can do, find out your depth, your rotation, who can shoot free throws down the stretch. There's a lot to go over with this game and to dissect, I guess. But even though it's Eastern Illinois, I still look at this as a positive because, like I said, during halftime, there's a lot of teams that play, and now that you don't respect Eastern, Mike, you some of these games are close. Illinois put their foot down, and you saw some talent out of a lot of the players that brought a lot of different things tonight.
I'm sorry, I'm not trying to be Captain Obvious here, but Will Riley was unbelievable. I saw a lot of things that I liked. First off, is I saw a player who just had, and I don't know any other way to say it, but he basically went out and showed the athleticism that he can do so many things. He was a step ahead of people. He could get higher than other people. 31 points is the most by an Illini freshman in their debut in the history of the program. And we all know some of the incredible freshmen who played basketball for the University of Illinois. Give me some of your thoughts on Will Riley because I thought his ability to shoot from the outside, holy cow, now we see how he was such a effective scorer in the EYBL.
Well, watching him tonight, that's what it looked like. It was really funny watching it. I'm like, this is not the Nike EYBL because what the fans saw tonight is exactly what we saw during the EYBL season and when Orlando Antigua saw him and then Brad Underwood. They saw a guy do this. What's impressive to me, I didn't think it was going to happen. I'm not going to sit and pat myself on the back. This kid he is 17, number one, not 18. He's 17 years old. I didn't think he'd do this in college. That's what's so impressive. And the thing that I like in the end, because they're toying around with him playing the point guard spot a little bit. I got to see him bring the ball up the court. Will he do that every game? No, but it's probably going to happen again once or twice this season. What you saw tonight was a kid who gained confidence and who showed why he's one of the top players in the class of 2025 and why NBA scouts are drooling all over him. You saw tonight. And even if he doesn't do that again, they see one thing, what I mentioned a couple minutes ago, 1-7. You get a 17-year-old kid and he'll be 18 years old playing in the league if he is one and done. Do you know how much mileage they could get out of a kid like that? So and he's long and he plays good defense. So just kudos to him and how he played. I know we'll go over some other players, but I remember talking to his mother. She made a comment to me. I'm just going to sit and wait, Kedric. I know how good my son is, and if he wants to be on that court, he's going to show Illinois fans and Brad Underwood that he wants to be on the court. Tonight against Eastern Illinois, he showed that, and the fans got a taste of what she was saying to me.
I think one of the things that was most refreshing about his parents and the way they looked at it was they were looking at this developmentally to get my son better and
Stronger.
if stronger, improve skills. And this is the type of game that if you worry about those things, these type of games just happen to be they happen to follow. It's like in baseball, you don't want to look to hit a home run at every at bat. You just want to make really good contact, and the home runs will come naturally.
Yeah, and tonight he let the game come to him against Ole Miss, and I don't want to keep talking about that, but it's that was a big game because it was against a ranked opponent. The speed of the game, I think, was a little tough for him. I think they were able to take his right or left hand away. But I also saw him, Learn. Hey, this is college. This isn't high school. I need to add a few more tricks to my bag to get around some of these guys. So, kudos to him. And I also give credit to the Illinois coaching staff. They saw a kid with a hot hand. They rode him. I thought that was really good that they did that. It was good to see the fans come out and to cheer him on and to chant his name. That's nothing but a confidence booster. I mean, for him all around. And what it also does, it's got to scare the rest of the Big Ten because Kylan Boswell hasn't gone off yet. Ben Rickhouse hasn't gone off yet. Ivisic hasn't really gone off yet. I mean, he had a double-double, but he was 3 of 10 from the field. This is why when you subscribe to our site, and Brad and I and Mike and Larry and Matt, we talked about this because we know how good the ceiling is with this team. I thought the defense was a little bit better, which we knew was going to be because you're going to play defense playing for Brad Underwood.
Yeah, I thought that was one of the best parts of the second half is, again, you're playing Eastern. We get that. But I thought the effort and intensity on the defensive end was much, much elevated. And I got to think that at halftime, the coaching staff had to be in people's faces a little bit about the effort level. And you didn't see those shots that were continually falling in the first half because the Illini were much more aggressive about defending against the shot as opposed to that wave at the guy a little bit sometime after the shot's up in the air that we were seeing in the first half.
Well, we knew they were going to make some corrections, Mike. They really did. I saw them get up the line a little bit more. I saw them. You know what I really saw tonight? We always talk about the length. They had so many deflections from everybody except for Draymond, and I had to say Kylan Boswell because there's two of the short, mini me's on the team, I guess.
Yeah.
But they had some deflections tonight, even from Kerry Booth. And there's another guy we've not seen go off. And one guy I feel bad for, but it's going to come, is Trey White. I mentioned him at halftime. When they get him going and Kylan to take care of the basketball, who had 5 turnovers tonight, it's going to be a good team. And I don't blame Brad because you're again, if you're coaching against this team when they're taking care of the basketball, when they're all making shots, who do you guard? Who do you stop?
Yeah, I thought KJ did a really good job of playing within himself tonight. We saw that it's clear he sees the court, but he didn't force things or try to make the impossible play. I thought he made the play that was in front of him. And sometimes that's enough. You don't have to try to be Superman out there.
No, and you know what? And when he gets going, look out because he can get to the basket. Tonight, I really saw his strength. They did a good job with him protecting the ball. Number one, people can criticize coaches, and and they know that they're going to get the good with the bad. I saw corrections with defense tonight. I saw KJ take care of the basketball. He wasn't loose with it tonight, and Eastern Illinois tried to pressure him because they saw game film, obviously, with what Ole Miss did. So I can really, really respect that. But when a team like this gets going with all these players, this is what you're going to get. And even if you have a bad night, if one guy has a night, well, hey, they're struggling, they're not shooting the ball really, really well, then you're going to have another guy to step up. This is what I talk about picking the poison. But again, good win. It's a confidence builder. They got some tough games, to come up, and I want to see them get better and better, and I want to see them take care of the basketball. And Mike, before I get done rambling, the free throws were impressive. They shot 46 free throws. You think about this, while we talk about how good of a shooting team this is, they attempted 46 free throws tonight.
Yeah, I hesitate to tell people, but the 58-28 rebounding advantage that the Illini had, I thought a lot of those rebounds that they got offensively ended up in fouls. And when you talk about lots of weapons, Ivisic, I thought his field goals, he still wasn't quite clicking. But boy, I thought he had a heck of a game in there. Was a rebounding machine, got in the way of a lot of shots. I thought overall he had quite a debut. And had he not had to go out for a few minutes with the ankle, who knows how much he might have scored out and what he might have done out there in a few more minutes.
There's a lot to go around, and I like what I saw. But for some reason, I'm stuck on that dude. I like that dude's game, man. I enjoy watching him play because it's been a long time. I've watched all these teams play with big guys, Luka Garza, Milo, and all these guys that can shoot. Illinois finally has a 7'1" guy that can, Euro step, if you will. He can shoot threes, rebounds really well. He's one of my favorite players. I'm going to enjoy covering him and watching him play this year because I've not seen anything like that in Illinois in a long, long time. Again, no disrespect to anybody else. And I want to tip my hat, to another guy, Draymond Gibbs Lawhorn. This kid, Mike, didn't play last year. Could have pouted. He did not do that at all. He stayed with the program, and I'm not gonna lie. I'm close to the family, and we talked quite a bit. He was frustrated, but he never quit. He stayed with it, and he believed in the program. He could have left. He didn't want to do that. And you saw last year, late in the season, Coach Underwood even said he probably should have played in more of the UConn game because he was athletic enough to do it. And so tonight you saw another good performance out of him. I believe he had 21 points here. I believe, let me look here. He had 21 points, on 5 of 10 shooting. He led the team against Ole Miss. And this is a guy coming off the bench.
In my latest heat check at Hail Mary, I talked a little bit about what I would advise each person on the basketball or each player on the basketball team, what I would advise them to do. And for Gibbs Lawhorn, my thought was just go out there and be productive and the minutes will take care of themselves. So clearly he read or he watched my podcast or he read my column because that was pretty much what he did out there is when he was, I don't know how you get a lot more productive than 21 minutes and 21 points. And if you look at his plus minus, he led the team there at plus 31. So that's a pretty good game. And I'm going to take all the credit for it, Ked, because I'm just going to unilaterally decide that he heard that. And that's what did it for him. Some folks obviously are talking about he's coming for Boswell's job. As a coach, I don't tend to worry about who starts, which means the players get frustrated with me at times. But to me, it's not necessarily the worst thing in the world if you've got a guy that you can bring him in and he's instant energy because he reminded me a little bit, and here's a name from the past, but he reminded me a little bit of Vinnie Johnson, the microwave.
The microwave.
Because he came in and he heated things up really quick when he was in the game tonight.
Well, to our listener out there who said he was coming for his job, I have to be honest with you. I understand where you're coming from. He's going to be pushing Kylan. And truthfully, though, Mike, I mean, for selfish reasons, every kid wants to start. But I'm going to tell everybody out there listening to this podcast, again, he would love to start, but I mean this, and this isn't secondhand information. That kid wants to play 15, 20 minutes a game. If he gets 15 or 20 minutes a game, you will never see him say anything, any bad body language, because he's that confident in himself to where he knows he's going to produce. He will affect the game. He may not score like that, but he understands and knows that he can defend. So that's all he wants. So if he wants a happy holiday gift, he gets 20 minutes a game. You're not going to hear a peep out of that kid. So starting would be great, but he understands it. He gets it. He's a sophomore, and the fans love him as well. And there was one sequence where he shot 4 times in a row, and I'm laughing, but he's effective. He really is.
Let's look at Ben Humrickhouse. I thought he had a quiet game, but yet you go back into the stat sheet. He's 5 for 8 from the field, 2 for 5 from the 3, 2 for 2 from the free throw line. This making 75% or making over 70% of your free throws was fun to watch. He had 5 rebounds, 2 of them were offensive. He had an assist. He had a block shot. And in 17 minutes, he went out there and just did the little things that are important.
He knocked down open shots. His job is to rebound, play defense, and make open shots. If he can get to the basket, great. I heard he has a pretty decent post-up game, but he has to be able to make open shots. And tonight, what a difference, it makes tonight. And I think a lot of guys were nervous. I tell you what, I've said this to a lot of people. If they played Ole Miss on a neutral court now, or maybe a week or two, I'm not saying Illinois is going to win. I don't know. I do think they're going to win. I'm sorry, I do. I'm lying, but I think it's a different game. The team they play was old. They knew. I didn't see any. One of the things that frustrated me in that exhibition game was the one-on-one play. I didn't see that tonight.
Yeah.
You saw them share the sugar tonight.
Yeah, and I do think that a coach like Coach Underwood has a way of expressing himself, and he really had something to talk about because these guys expect to be good and they didn't expect to get their butts kicked. And when they got their butts kicked, all of a sudden, now you need to pay attention to coach because maybe he knows what he's talking about. I know that the coaching staff never goes into a game thinking we want to lose, but I don't think that Coach Underwood had to be too awful disappointed because of what it allows him to do on the court and give them some real motivation to get better.
Yeah, and I'm an offensive guy. I even do that during football season. But I mentioned earlier about the length. They had 9 block shots tonight. As a team, they shot 38% from three. They got 42 off. Some of those came late in the game, so I get it. And they shot 48% from the field. That's pretty productive, and I'm a little disappointed in myself that that I didn't mention Ben, and he had the 14 points, Mike, but he only played 17 minutes.
Yeah.
He gets, so that's where you have to look at, if this team is about winning and if they're going to, give those minutes up. Now, one guy we've not mentioned, and you and I, we love this kid, is Morez Johnson. Um, Morez Johnson played 15 minutes. He had 8 rebounds in 15 minutes. He was second on the team to Ivisic. So I like Morez when he brings to the table. I think he's better offensively. Tonight he only took 2 shots. He didn't get a lot of shots off. But when you do go to the free throw line, you can't go 1 for 4. That's a part of his game I think he needs work on. But I hope to see him become a polished offensive player. If he can get, I know he's gonna get 8 rebounds. If he can get 6 or 8 points and 8 rebounds every time, again, who do you pick? Who do where's your poison? I've scouted games. I've had scouting reports over my life where I've had to scout teams. And I'm thinking right now, there's one spot, and I'm not going to say because it's not fair to a player. If I had to pick on one player in Illinois, it's a starter. I could do it. But everybody else on their roster, but you really can't pick on this kid. But I see that there was something I had to pick on. It would be something small, but the team itself trying to stop and guard and take something away, I think it's tough. And the kid I'm talking about, this is self-inflicted. It's nothing that the team is doing or anything like that. But I know it's going to get cleaned up.
Yeah, and I would say Morez had 6 blocks, which here's the cool thing about that is that matches the freshman record. Kofi Coburn did that against Indiana in 2020. What a fun game that was to watch. And of course, James Griffin did that in November of 1978. And I will tell you, one of the jobs that James had when he was in college was he worked for a road construction company, and they were working on a highway going through the middle of Muhammad one year. James had the slow sign, and he would hold the slow or the stop sign during construction for about 5 minutes. Then he'd go under a tree where there was a lawn chair, and then he'd sit for the rest of the shift. About once an hour, he'd come out and hold that sign up, slow, stop, and then do that for about 5 minutes and go over and sit down in the shade. So we were huge James Griffin fans in Muhammad because he was right in front of the Dairy Queen doing making sure that it was safe during road construction.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
That's good
if
stuff.
you're old enough, kid, you can run into a lot of people. One that we haven't talked about as well is uh, Kerry Booth, 2 for 5 from the three. Ended up with 5 rebounds, and people talk about he needs to get more physical. Clearly, he's going to be fletching it, so he's going to be getting bigger and stronger. But I thought it was good to see him active on the boards that way. Also ended up with a block shot. I'd like to see him go inside a little more with the ball. But all in all, 2 for 5, that's gonna earn you a living if you can shoot 40% from the three.
I don't. What stinks? You're right. His size, you would think he would want to be inside more. It's just not his game. I mean, I don't think you're ever going to see a post. You'll see him post up, but you're not going to see them put him on the block unless there's a mismatch. What he can't do is expect to make a career shooting threes, because no matter how good you can shoot, you're not going to shoot the ball good every night, and you have to find a way to get to the rim, which is one reason I like KJ and Draymond. They're good shooters, but they can also get to the rim. And that's something that Booth is going to have to figure out, because when he gets the ball, plays like I did back in the day 100 years ago. He ran to the corner looking for threes, and that's what I did. But that's not going to keep you in the court a lot, again, if you're not making shots. So, I mean, and he looked confident. He looked a lot better. They all looked a lot better than they did against in the exhibition. But he needs to be able to put the ball on the floor, a mid-range game, or go dunk over the top of people. Because again, if you think you're just going to, when the Big Ten starts, when you play Tennessee and some of these other teams, like Ohio State's playing right now, the athleticism is is outstanding. You're not just going to be able to do that.
Ked, I don't know if you agree with me on this, but I do think we're in a countdown to November 20th, that Wednesday night at 8 o'clock Central, when you will see on the SEC network, Illinois will go and visit Alabama and they'll play in
Mm.
Birmingham. We're looking at basically a game on Friday night. So, folks, get Peacock because you're gonna want to watch the Illini. They will be playing SIU Edwardsville, so it's a little bit of a critter. That's fine because of who they're playing that are not critters. And then they will play Oakland on November 13th. That's a week from Wednesday, and that one, of course, will be on the Big Ten Network. But I think everything is pointing to that game against Alabama, where then we will see just how well they stack up against a very good team that's got a lot of talent, plays really strong defense, and Illinois will be tested. And then they'll have to play that tough defense the whole game, and they'll have to make shots against guys who will be better able to contest them against our Illini.
Mike, they're going to be in their shorts. They're going to have to run off screens well. They're going to have to, when they get a chance to finish at the rim, you can't go up there and finger roll it because it's going to come back to champagne. Those teams are aggressive. What you don't want to do is go to say, I'm going to play Alabama and use it as a learning experience. Go there to win the game. Show your growth. Show the people how good you are, because they can do it. It's there. But they're going to need a night where you don't want to see them do Illinois things that they play well, and then down the stretch, the fans are disappointed because you think, oh my gosh, if this would have happened, that would have happened. You know who you're playing up front. There's absolutely no reason to not come out and to be excited and jack to play. This is a great schedule for Illinois basketball fans. That's what I don't like. We've been around for a long time. This is probably the best non-conference schedule overall that I've seen. They've always played some good teams. Don't get me wrong, but not like this, because
Yeah,
Alabama and Arkansas are loaded.
yeah, we'll give you some of the highlights. On November 20th is Alabama. Then on November 23rd, the dreaded Maryland Eastern Shore. And then play Little Rock on November 25th, which leads us up. And this is where it starts getting really interesting. But of course, Arkansas on November 28th on Thanksgiving Day. They're going to go head to head against the Cowboys. And I'm telling you, I usually watch a Cowboy game, but they suck so bad. Looks like we're watching the Illini, folks. And then December 6th, they go into a 2-game streak against Big Ten teams. So Northwestern and Wisconsin. And then on Saturday, the 14th, Tennessee gets to come to Champaign. And that is going to be a awesome game. It's on Fox. It'll be in the midst of the bowl season and all those things. What a great time it's going to be. A Illini fan. And then they have 2 games to wrap up the year, where they will be December 22nd at 12 noon playing Missouri on ESPN. So there's your McBride Holmes bragging rights game. And then on December 29th, Chicago State. And then Illinois will go back on January 2nd, a Thursday, and January 5th, a Sunday. They will take a Western swing in the Big Ten to play Oregon and Washington. So Illinois has got quite a schedule when you think about the fact that they're going to be playing Arkansas, Alabama, Missouri, and Tennessee. And then the other thing that people don't think too much of, But there's one other non-conference game in February where they play some team, you may have heard of them, the Duke Blue Devils. And that'll be sandwiched in between a game at Wisconsin and then inviting the Iowa Hawkeyes to come. So this team is going to have the opportunity to excel at a high level, and they will be not only on the court against the best of the Big Ten, but they'll be on the court against the best in the country, period.
They'll be battle tested. If they win enough of those games, they will receive a great seed for the NCAA tournament. If they get into the tournament, the schedule is tough, but what you don't want to do is lose all these games either. You don't want to. And I know this is an Illinois podcast. I think Michigan State's done a lot of that in the last couple of years. They've scheduled some of these teams, but the talent hasn't been there, and they've not won, and they've not won some of these games. So, at some point they'll stop asking you to play or they'll ask someone else. So, I'm just really, really excited that Illinois is back on the map, and Josh Whitman or Brad Underwood can call and say, "Hey, you know what? Let's go play." And people want that. They know Illinois is one of the best teams in the Big Ten. They have been, and they're recruiting like that. So I really, really think this is a good situation for them right now. But you want to win. You don't want to just play these games just because and lose all 5 or 6 of them. And you don't want to be blown out in all of them either.
This is the Run My Own Business dream. This is the college is paid for dream. This is the retire early dream. This is Busey, where your dreams and possibilities become moments through trusted guidance and expertise, through lifelong relationships. Because we're here to help you achieve the life you've always envisioned.
I'm going to take a quick break here, folks. Subscribe to IlliniGuys.com for 27 cents a day. Here's what you get, because we're asking for essentially around $9 a month. But what you get for that is you get all of our stories. A lot of them are blocked by the majority are blocked by paywall because we're a subscriber type of place. The other thing that you get, and this is what makes it different, besides getting the stories, you get them a little bit early. We have a message board in back, and it's very similar to today where people can tweet or they can on YouTube, they can put a comment, we can respond to it. What happens is we have message boards where you can go back and forth. We have a huge fan community of folks who talk about Illinois sports on our message boards. But the thing that makes it unique is that you can go on there and Ked might have a story or a comment about a situation, and you can say, Ked, what are you talking about? What do you mean by this? And so that's the additional part. And, folks, it does cost money. When we had to fly Matt Stevens out to Oregon, that does cost dollars. So to get that type of coverage, when Brad Sturdy goes to New York City to cover Illinois in a game, you don't stay in New York City for free. So please subscribe to us. It's $99 a year, 27 cents a day. If you subscribe, give you 6 days to kick the tires. On the 7th day, your credit card gets charged. We would love to have more people who can go back into the message boards and have debates and discussions on Illinois sports. If you want to avoid politics, it's the perfect place to be because we don't talk about it. We just talk about Illinois, Big Ten, NFL. We just talk about guy stuff. We'll talk movies and TV shows as well. But you get that one-on-one where you can ask Matt a question about the football team. You can ask Ked about recruiting. You can ask Brad about what's going on behind the scenes. You can ask Larry all sorts of questions. You can debate with me and a boatload of Illinois fans as well. Please go to IlliniGuys.com. If you haven't thought about doing that, I think you'll be happy. We love having more people join that community. And of course, on Twitter, please go ahead and give us a follow there. We will definitely give you a lot of Illini information, a lot of Big Ten information, and we've got plenty of podcasts that we try to remain positive on. It's a fun moment of your day, and you don't have to listen to some of the crap where people are yelling back and forth. We don't do it. We'd rather have fun and laugh a little bit about what is going on. Ked, as we look at this Illini team, you're going in these next couple games trying to get this team prepared. SIU, Edwardsville, and Oakland, as they're trying to get to deal with Alabama on November 20th. what now are you looking at that you're going to work on as a coach that you want to start getting better to prepare for the roll tide?
Number one, avoid unforced turnovers. Turnovers to me are horrible. I'm not a fan of those unforced. They're part of the game. But when you're dribbling a basketball and you're throwing the ball across the court when your teammate's not looking, waste of possession. That's a momentum killer, number one. I definitely want to see that. And then I also personally would like to see some of the guys I will mention, Kerry Booth, Trey White. I want to see those two guys get going and Marez Johnson offensively. I know what they bring to the table. To look at the games this week coming up and the big Alabama game and all the other games that they have on schedule, you're going to need them. And tonight, when you look on the bench and they can say, no, it's not true, you can see the frustration's face on Trey White's face. He's trying. He's really trying, but he needs to let the game come to him. Actually, when I talked to him, he said that that was easy and he was over that part of it because everyone made him feel welcome. But when you have somebody, it's kind of like business. If you have somebody nipping at your heels in the back, thinking, "Hey, I want your minutes," and you're not producing, like you want to, or you can, I can understand that. So I want to see that. I want to see that clean up. I really personally, Mike, I think the big fellas should get about 15 shots a game. I mean, the threes are going to fall. It is what it is, and I'm not saying shoot threes. He needs to get more touches because one, he's a good passer, and he's long, and he can finish. And if you foul him, it's like fouling a guard. When was the last time Illinois had a center, a true center, where he can shoot free throws like that? What was he from the line tonight? I'm gonna have to look and see. I mean, I know he was really, really effective tonight from the line. What is it? 7 for 9. So
Yeah, he's an 87% free throw shooter, Ked. You know how deadly that is because let's think about it. All the years we coached, what was the worst thing is you get a guy on the inside, and if you can't foul him, you either let the big guy score over the top of you or you foul him. He's going to foul out the other team and put up points while he's doing it.
Right, and that's the unique thing about this team. Because I knew they were a good shooting team. I knew free throws wouldn't be a problem this year. Again, Marez has not been great, but I mean that's one guy out of 12. So that's probably the one positive, Mike. But I really think the unforced turnovers, and I think if they want to have a chance, in my opinion, they're young and it's going to be tough. You dictate the tempo of what you want to play. If they want to beat those teams, you got to shoot 46 free throws against them, get them in foul trouble, make the coach put them on the bench and have to force him to decide. And what Brad does and his coaches, namely Tyler, they know that. When they see a mismatch or a guy that they have in foul trouble, I don't know if people realized that last year, they attack them right away. And whether if it wasn't, Marcus Domas, it was Ty Rogers going to get them. I mean, so that's the thing that I want to see them do. Take care of the ball, put pressure on them, and then get them in foul trouble because that's how you eliminate the pressure. If you attack pressure, they either have to let you go by or you score or get fouled, and you're a good free throw shooting team. But you can't run away from it.
I am the world's biggest Kofi Coburn fan, but that was the one part of his game that he wasn't horrific by the time he left. But that inability to really make people pay at the foul line allowed people to try to beat him up over the course of a game, and they didn't have to pay as significant a price. The other thing with Tomislav, which I thought was amazing, was he really has an eye for the floor. He had a great pass at the beginning of the game to Trey White, which got him a nice point blank layup. And unfortunately, White was fouled. So he ended up having to go to the free throw line. And Tomislav only had 2 assists tonight. But if you're going to double team him in the paint, he will make you pay. And it's
Yes.
not necessarily the easy pass that he can make because he'll go across the court with it.
Yes, and that's what I like about him. Man, when I mentioned to you them going to him looking to score more, to get the more touches, he's good in the post. He doesn't miss layups and he looks to dunk. So he's effective. I think that's a big part of the game, which is why I said to you earlier in this broadcast, he's a guy that I want to ride as a guy I really want to cover because I think he's intriguing. just a big fellow that Illinois hasn't had, and he's going to be a tough matchup for a lot of people. But a lot of other teams in the conference, they also have big 7-foot guys that can stretch the floor and who can put the ball in the basket and put it on the floor to get to the rim. So I think he's a big part of the offense. Tonight when he got hurt, I thought there's no way this can't be happening. And then seeing him walk off the court himself, and obviously he came back. That's going to be a good sign. But Illinois is lucky to have him because he's eligible. Things typically don't go your way when it comes to that. It always goes the other way, Mike. So I just like his game. And again, not to rehash it, he's a big part of what they're going to do. And Merez gives them the other post a different look than what he does.
Yeah, and I do think that Merez energy that he comes out with, especially on the defensive end of the court, that's got to be a really tedious 1-2 punch for the other team, because you get Tomislav with the size and the length, then Merez comes in not quite as big, but probably twice as quick and playing at that high level of intensity. That's got to be a nice 1-2 punch for players to deal with, and I really am interested when they play against the better teams how they will fare, because I do think that's something that Illinois has that I don't know that they've ever had, because it was always like Kofi and then nobody. So I really like that.
So do I. I mean, I think it's a different look, and you're right. Not since Kofi have they had anybody like that. But Kofi was just hacker guy. He got better toward the end, with his free throws, but it still wasn't, what Ivisic has right now, or what he can do when he gets to the free throw line. But Mike, when you look at this box score, we talk about a lot of players, and It's really hard to say. We all look at KJ, and he played 25 minutes, second most minutes on the team. He only scored 11 points, Mike, but he had 5 rebounds and 7 assists and only 2 turnovers tonight. I think there's some growth to that, and I think he should, be given some kudos as well. He was 3 for 4 from the field and 1 for 2 from 3. He didn't force a lot. I think when his shot starts to fall, when you look at it, if he's able to give them 18 points a game, 5 rebounds, and 6 or 7 assists, that's what the NBA scouts are going to be looking at. So I know we didn't talk a lot about him, but that's another guy on the stat sheet that had a pretty good game and only played 25 minutes.
Well, and Ked, look, if I tell you that you're going to have a player that takes 4 shots and makes 11 points, let's face it, that's about as efficient as you get out there on a basketball court. And the other thing I thought was interesting about him is, and again, I realize it's Eastern, but I really thought the game kind of slowed down a little bit for him.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't try to amp himself up. I thought he took what the defense gave him, and I thought against Ole Miss, he was trying to do too much. And granted, if we had that much talent, we'd try to do too much as well. But I think he played within himself, and I think he's going to have some games that'll be pretty darn scary when you get out there and watch that.
Well, Mike, I'm probably one of the few guys in the world, and you can ask why. I'm not really big on plus and minuses. I use my eyes. I think that's great. But I'm bringing this up because when you look at KJ's plus and minus, he was 29, tonight. So I'm just not a big fan of those, but I get it. I understand why coaches do it. But he was very, very productive, from a plus minus standpoint. So you're right. You put up that many points and 11 points, but on 3 or 4 shooting and 1 or 2 shot 50% from 3. That's effective. So again, really curious to see if the competition steps up, how well they improve, and to see if they've made that leap, from the Ole Miss game to these games right here, because this is somebody different. You don't get to beat the same person up at practice. And I do like the fact that these kids on their own, I was told, from a good source, that these kids are in there looking at film on their own. It's not like the coaches have to bring them in. They're looking at what they're doing, and the technology today is just amazing. You can look at the film today and break down all your pluses. So, like, what I mean by that is when you can put the information in when you were being positive. So that means if you made an assist, you got a rebound, you got a defensive stop. if you turned the ball over, if you missed an assignment, you can literally watch those segments and what you've done, and then you can correct them yourself. I mean, coaches obviously is there to help out with that, but that's the technology they have today at Illinois, which I think is unique because you can see for yourself what you did and what you missed with or without a coach.
One of the final things we're talking about here is the first half. Eastern started off really hot, and then they were down to 41%, 41.7 by the end of the first half. And in the second half, the handcuffs came out. Illinois held them to 34.4. That's the type of effort that Illinois is going to need to be successful in the Big Ten. And I was happy to see it because many a year we've watched too many teams like Eastern extend Illinois a little further into the game than what we would like. And this one was essentially over by halftime, if not a little earlier. And that, I think, is what Brad Underwood wants out of this team.
Well, the microwave gave him that spark. I mean, it was a close game when he came in and
Yep.
he got on a run. Mike, that's when the game changed. I mean, people can say what they want, but they got going offensively, and Eastern called a timeout. So that's why it's good sometimes to have a spark off the bench.
Talk a little bit for folks who maybe didn't get an opportunity to tune in at halftime, but Taiwan Cox, younger brother of Torrey Cox Jr., and he's currently defensive back for Illinois. His younger brother committed. Maybe you can talk a little bit about him. And before you do, I will tell you that what Illinois, think about the difference between Penn State and Ohio State. We see it every year when Penn State, they on offense, they cannot get any separation at the wide receiver position versus the Ohio State cornerbacks. And every year we have a team where we have a game where Ohio State wins by 7 to 20 points, but yet it's never really that close because there's never really a threat on the Penn State offense that can stretch the Ohio State defense. And that's because Ohio State has unbelievable cornerbacks with speed and ability to cover on the field. And Penn State doesn't have the difference makers at the wide receiver position. And this kid is a blazer. And to me, Ked, I know when it comes out to cornerback and wide receiver, you got to get guys who are big, guys who are fast, or guys who are big and fast.
Or physical. So, like, you're right. Illinois tonight, it's really weird. During a basketball game, they received a commitment from Taiwan Cox. His brother, Torrey Cox Jr., is already part of the team. I mentioned earlier at halftime his father, Torrey, also played in the NFL, and he was on official visit last week, and he liked what he saw, and he had originally committed to USF. Illinois was able to flip that commitment. And what Mike is talking about is that during our podcast after the Oregon game, I harped on it probably more than Mike, and I probably went overboard, which I have a tendency to do at times. We talked about speed. That was the one glaring difference. And, by getting Cox today was a huge get because, speed matters. You could be athletic, which Illinois has a ton of athletic players. But the problem is right now, what they've done is that they have a guy who was reported running a 10,700-meter dash. So that means he's going to be able to get out to recover some wide receivers and to make a ground because, again, there's no substitute for speed. And that's what Illinois has to have. And I think they're seeing that because they're not going to avoid Ohio State, Michigan, and Oregon and Penn State all the time. You're going to get one or two of those teams pretty much every year. So that's why, to me, I mean, that was a big get for them tonight to be able to flip him. I'm not really surprised that it happened because of the family and because of the success that Torrey Jr. is having. So I'm not surprised by that. Then they were also able to flip another guy tonight. His name is J.J. Hurties. He is a big offensive lineman with 83-inch wingspan, 6'7", 275 pounds. He's a teetering 3-star recruit, but Illinois likes his size. I mean, you can't teach that kind of size with him. And He's a guy that they hope that they can develop. And again, they were able to flip him from Western Michigan, which is nice because these kids commit there means they come on campus and they like what they saw. Even though Illinois lost last week, they liked what they saw with the coaches, the players, and where the direction the program is going. And again, that says something during a basketball game, and people may not realize it, but they got 2 commitments, within 2 hours of the Illinois basketball game tonight.
And then one other question for you, Ken, when it comes to football recruiting, how important is this last home game against Michigan State? Is Illinois going to try to go for broke, so to speak, and get as many kids in there as they can? Because I would think there's quite a few kids by that time of the year that may not be in a playoff game. You can get some guys to lay eyes on the Illini and have an opportunity to make that last big impression at a home game where you can show off the Smith Center, you can show off the Memorial Stadium and all the things that Illinois has going on.
Mike, one of the things you guys hired me to do recruiting, and I look at that all the time. And when I look at the schedule, I didn't like it because you got the Michigan State game and then you're done. Now your next 2 games are on the road. And I'm saying that from a recruiting standpoint, the longer you play, the better. Now, the one positive thing about that this year, though, even though I didn't like the schedule because I would like to have another home game, home and away or away and home, is that they're going to go to a bowl game because they already have 6 wins. So that's going to be one positive. Regardless of what happens, the season will not be over. So they'll be able to bring kids in this year to watch them practice and get ready for a bowl game. People do not understand how important that is. Schools use it all the time. I know because where I live, the University of Iowa, always, that was a big selling point to them. Bring these kids in because Iowa was always good enough to go somewhere in Florida, and that was attractive to kids. Illinois needs to win another game or 2 to do the same thing. Continue on that. You can't lose another 2 or 3 games right now. Use the recruiting because you're going to go to a bowl game. Get them on campus, Mike. And I do know the last home game, they will try to bring in a lot of recruits. So they'll try to flip kids as well, meaning that kids are already committed somewhere to try to get them to come to University of Illinois. My thing is, overall, I want to see speed. I know the talent. They do a good job of coaching. But I think in some areas, that speed has to be there. One guy I will mention on the offense right now is Cole Rusk, who was injured. They throw the ball to the tight end a lot. And I don't think Illinois fans know how fast he is. I think if he would have been healthy, I think the offense would have been a little bit different because you can throw the ball to him as a tight end like a receiver. So that's going to be another weapon. And Illinois is trying to load themselves up with tight ends.
Yeah, I was thinking that it might look a little bit like at least the healthy part of the Penn State offense with the tight end that they've got. And Rusk is just as big and probably even faster. That would have been nice. Now, does Illinois have any ability? Can they use that Wrigley Field game? Is there any benefit there, or is that just something where you want to beat the tar out of Northwestern on national TV?
You want to do that, but I'm going to tell you, the Illinois coaches are pretty clever. It's a game for Northwestern, but they're recruiting the kids. I don't remember who it was a couple of years ago. Illinois went to Northwestern, and the football recruits that Illinois were recruiting, some of the ones that committed was there. So it is an opportunity to recruit because there's no harm in recruiting those kids. And then Illinois is recruiting, then the game's over. They come on the field and talk to you when it's over. So having said that, I know they do it. They'd be crazy not to do it because it's right in their backyard. So yes, it does happen, and I know Illinois has done a good job of attracting kids. And the 4 years Beadham has been there, it's been a lot different. Kids just didn't care. They put Illinois on their list because they had to, because it was a state university. Now these kids are on their list because it's a place of destination, a place where I want to go play. The Suter kid from Mount Zion, it's a kid that is really, really highly recruited, one of the best football recruits in the country, and Illinois is going to make his top 3 or 4 or 5. He told me a couple of weeks ago, regardless of where he goes to school. That didn't happen before. So they're really, really trying to hone in. And you also got to remember, guys, they're competing against 17 other Big Ten schools and other schools outside of the conference for these kids.
That's a challenge that, unfortunately, it's one that's a tough one. And certainly that's where Illinois is obviously trying to turn over everything they can to get funds for NIL to help attract some folks, or at least be able to grab people out of the transfer portal. That's the one thing that has been so important. If you take a look at this year's football team, and certainly we saw it on the basketball court, if you can fill in holes recruiting wise in the transfer portal, I don't know that you can make up for just a disastrous recruiting, but I do know that if you're targeted, look at what would Illinois' season be like this year, Kev, without J.C. Davis at the left tackle, because we haven't really had to worry about too much going on at left tackle from a pass rush standpoint. And boy, if they hadn't got him to stabilize it, what kind of season might we be looking at right now? Because poor Luke Altmaier, I think he's been hit a lot so far. You don't have a good left tackle out there, and oh my goodness, it could be a lot worse.
Mike, I'm going to tell people out there, and I'm not a politician, for anything, but I'm going to tell you, I've always said this. Anybody who's followed me and known me over the years, I've always bragged about how good and how loyal the Illinois fans are. I personally think, this is my opinion, the reason why the football team is competitive is because of NIL. I would just imagine this. You got Luke Altmaier, who's having a tremendous year. You wouldn't have got him. You wouldn't have got Zakari Franklin without the NIL. Or if those kids come, they sit out, then they're playing with different times. Look at your basketball team. Look at Terrence Shannon Jr., arguably one of the top 3 players to play in the country. Without the NIL, you don't get a Terrence Shannon. Shauna Green has turned around the women's basketball program. She has 5 seniors. Kendall Bossick could go anywhere in the country and play. So could Makara Cook and Genesis Bryant. The NIL dollars, to me, it makes Illinois competitive. When you think back 10, 15 years ago, we talk about Illinois being good in football once every 10 years. You have a coach now in all 3 of those sports I just mentioned who are going to put a product on the field. Shauna Green is one of 3 teams in the entire Big Ten as of today, November 4th, that has 3 top 100 recruits per the ESPN. It's Illinois, Michigan, and Iowa. Put it in perspective, guys. You know what I'm saying? So that's why the NIL does matter. UCLA doesn't have that. Ohio State doesn't have that. So look at it, or even Indiana, and think, okay, this is where we're coming from. Because now you can throw those NIL dollars out there along with the practice facilities. Brett Bielema could say, because I'm going to tell you, if you guys ever get a chance, the facilities in that Smith Center and the basketball complex, it is first class all around. I'm not sure everybody has those facilities, but with your fan base playing in the Big Ten, those 3 coaches that I mentioned, there's player development. You just saw Will Riley, a freshman in his debut, break a record because this is most points by a freshman in debut. Ladies and gentlemen, he's 17 years old. Illinois got that kid over Alabama, Arkansas, and schools like that. You tell me NIL doesn't matter. I just gave you a plethora of answers how it does.
Yeah. One of the key things, of course, Josh Whitman's been focused on getting that NIL built up for Illinois, and it is something that is critical. And certainly the icon for the Illini would definitely be a place that you could donate and would be greatly appreciated, because every one of those dollars helps out in these type of situations. So going forward, any closing thoughts on the Illini basketball game that we saw tonight?
This is the run my own business dream. This is the college is paid for dream. This is the retire early dream. This is Busey, where your dreams and possibilities become moments through trusted guidance and expertise, through lifelong relationships. Because we're here to help you achieve the life you've always envisioned.
I saw a different team than what I saw before. The opponent wasn't as good, but I saw the coaches make improvement. As a former coach myself, that's one thing I've always thought, you want to get better. And I saw that. I saw the coaches earn their keep. I saw different passes. I saw Kasparis go to the rim and look across the court. The first game, he was trying to force the issue. Those are things that I saw that was different. Guys got open looks. That's what's going to make them tough. So moving forward, you want to see that, against whoever they're playing. Because if, again, you put pressure on them and you make shots, that's going to make it tough for the coach. And anybody who zones Illinois, I'd have to check your mental state, because I don't know why in the hell you would do that.
You obviously are famous for getting along with the coaching staff. What does Orlando Antigua bring to this staff? I'm not saying it's better than last year's staff, but what does he bring that is different based on Orlando Antigua and his traits as a person and a coach?
Well, I hope Brad Underwood doesn't get mad at me for saying this, but I'm going to tell you, I think what I know is Coach Underwood is a great guy. When you talk to him, he's on basketball. It's like talking to your best friend. But Coach is tough. What Orlando brings to the table, he can talk to him. Orlando's a guy, regardless of they're up by 20, down by 40, Orlando could get in his ear and say, hey, Coach, this is what we need. This is what I'm thinking. That is what Orlando does, where a lot of people don't understand his value. O is capable of doing that, and I love that about him. Brad expects that when Orlando came back, that was one of the things I asked him. He's like, well, I missed that part of Coach Underwood because he allows me to help him out and voice my opinions. You're right. This not saying the staff is better or worse. That's the part about Orlando that I think is really, really underrated, on top of the fact that he can recruit, and he is a hell of a big man's coach. He is remarkable. You look at where Kofi came from as a freshman to where he ended. And I mean, when I interviewed Thomas Love he was a couple weeks ago, Orlando was one of the big reasons, because he knows he's going to become a better basketball player.
And look at this, folks. We got the Uber insider himself, Brad Sturdy. They've actually let him out of the State Farm Center, almost said Assembly Hall. So, Brad, we got to see an exciting game. What jumped out at you when you're right there at courtside as to what you saw with this new Illini 7.0 or whatever 0.0 we are under the Brad Underwood era?
Yeah, his team is really, really talented. They can really score the basketball. They have multiple guys. They play, and this is what we've talked about for years. We've always talked about how you want to shoot threes, you want to get the ball in the paint, and you want to get to the foul line. Those are the three ways you want to score. They had 110 of their 112 points in one of those three methods. They had 28 points in the paint. They had 48 points from three, and they had the 20, whatever the free throws they had. And then they had two. Will Riley hit a pull-up jumper when he was on a heater. So I think that's okay. We'll let him do that. But it's really impressive offensively. I still think there's some work to do defensively, but they really limited what EIU could do offensively. They made them shoot those two-point jumpers that Brad Underwood loves teams to take. And interestingly enough, it was like it's kind of a thing where when you look at it, if you look at it, EIU didn't score that well. But at times it looked like they were, because early on they made a lot of those shots. Well, as time goes on, and Underwood talked about this post-game, it wears the other team down. They can't keep making those shots. They start contesting better and getting better at their defense, and I think that's the thing they have to do next, is just keep improving defensively. They're going to score.
Yeah, so we talked about that a little bit. What did you see out there? It really looks like they must have had some open communications with Coach, who might have been disappointed by the Ole Miss game. Did you get any sense? Did Underwood talk about what they'd worked on since then, or give you any indication as to what he thought had maybe changed up for the team?
Yeah, actually, I asked him that in the post game. That was one of the questions I asked, was talking about defensively, what adjustments they had made, how they thought they'd improve. They thought they guarded the ball much better, did a better job of staying in front of guys and staying connected to guys, not giving as much space. He singled out Kylan Boswell for his on-ball defense. I thought Dre Gibbs-Lawhorn did a pretty good job as well. Obviously, some of the other guys still have some work to do. But the other part was that the other thing they talked about was just the connection and the communication. That's something they've harped on, obviously, since the beginning. But it is really, really, really difficult to have a team that is connected after like a month of practice. You know what I mean? I mean, they're just going to keep getting better, and it's difficult to have them, they're not a finished product in any way, shape, or form. So now it's just a matter of becoming a finished product, getting a little bit better at, that aspect of the game and defensively, and communication is going to be a big part of that. And I think awareness too, like, understanding who you're guarding, what they're going to do, what they like to do, those kind of things. They don't really, I'll be honest with you, they haven't done a full scouting report yet. They just started a little bit more with EIU tonight. But they just talked about player tendencies against Ole Miss. They didn't really do as much. So that you're going to see more and more, because these guys got to kind of, learn how to scout and how to read those scouting reports. And I think they're going to get better and better at that as well. But young guys don't do it as much, and this is a very young team.
Will Riley was amazing. What did you think of what he displayed in terms of athleticism and shot making ability?
Oh, it's insane. He's such a good scorer. And we saw that in the EYBL. We've seen him go on heaters like that before. But he did it at the college level in his first game, so it's pretty impressive. I mean, I think he scored like 25 points in the second half or something like that, 26 in the second half. Yeah. It's really amazing when you think about it. In 11 minutes. I mean, when he gets on a heater, and Brad said that in practice sometimes it happens, and when it happens, you just say, okay, we got to find a way to get him the ball, because this dude can get buckets. He's one of those guys that's wired to score. He's really good at it, and he's also 6'9", and he can catch and shoot. He can hit spot ups. He can put it on the deck. You can run him in ball screens. You can run him. They ran one action that you can see they're going to run a lot of with him. They ran pin downs. Where he would, for Ivisic would come down and, basically would screen for Will. Will's coming off that screen for either shot or he can curl. You got Ivisic will roll the basket. So basically a pin down action. Not fancy, but it's really, really effective when you have two guys that are that good. And Ivisic can also space the corner on that pin down if they come to him, if the help's, in the paint. So lot of offensive options for those guys.
Brad, before you got on the air, I told Mike, it's funny when you say that. I talked about and referred to how that's what he did in the EYBL. There were games where he would just score 18, 19, 20 points in a row. That's what was so attractive to him. And I'm surprised that he did it in college, but then again, I'm not. And I told our listeners out there before you got on, kid is 17 years old. I mean, let's keep that in mind. He's a young kid.
Yeah, he's good. Some guys are just meant to score, and he is one of them.
KJ had a very quiet game, yet ruthlessly efficient with 4 shots and 11 points. That's just something you just don't see that much. It looks like he was playing within himself and not trying to be everything to everybody on every play. What were your thoughts on his performance?
Well, I thought he's good. He just plays he has such command of the game. When he's got the ball, he's going to make those. He makes some. His passes are just amazing. I mean, when you see, and I think courtside you see it even better, and in practice things like that when you're up close. When you see the windows that he throws balls through, it's really astonishing. And you'll see him throw a ball to a guy who's cutting before he really cuts. And then all of a sudden, boom! This guy cuts, and he's already thrown the pass and hits him before he can even do anything. It's just insane, really. So, how good a passer he is, and that's the first thing that always jumps out. I think that he's obviously got some great size that helps him with that passing, but he has such a good feel for the game, such a high basketball IQ. I think there's nothing that you can say that's negative about him right now. It's just experience, understanding how to play within like a flow, because right now it's more of a, there's really there's not sets like there are in Europe. So now he's got to just play with the flow, play a little quicker maybe than he did in Europe and in transition and things like that. But you're going to see him just be he's going to have games where he's got double-digit assists, double-digit points, and he's a guy, he and Ivisic are both guys that could be triple-double guys at some point.
Yeah, I agree with that. And speaking of Ivisic, I thought his play was good. You've covered Illinois for 20 years. Where do you put him in the centers that Illinois has had over the last couple decades?
Man, he's good. He's different. I mean, he's not Kofi. He's different.
Right.
And Kofi was dominant, but they haven't had a guy who's really like him in the sense who can really space the floor that well, but also has that size and ability to shoot it from deep. I mean, that's not a common thing. So, yeah, he's really special. I think we were sitting at the courtside. I'm not sure that he's not the best player on the team right now. Like, I mean, from when you talk about offense, defense, rebounding, everything, that was before Riley went nuts. But, I mean, I think that he is the best. When you talk about everything that he brings to the table, he's probably maybe the most important player. I mean, KJ's great. But right now, and I think that KJ and Riley are better talents.
Yep.
But I think right now he's so important and he does so many things well that it's just he's really good. And there are many. I know he's not I don't know what he is, sophomore technically, but he's he lost a year of eligibility, whatever it is. But he's he's really good player for a first year guy.
Yeah, it is amazing to me. You've made too much money, so you're going to come back to the U.S. so that we can pay you more money. You need to give that money away. Okay, good. Thank you.
Yep.
Yeah, well,
we're always helping out charities, right? NCAA.
What did you think of Rickhouse up close there? How did you think he played? And he seemed to have a little more confidence tonight than that opening game against Ole Miss.
Yeah, I think he was fine. I think there's a lot of pressure on him. When you start reading all the press clippings about how you're going to be this and that and the other, I think it's tough, even if you're a kid who's a lot of experience, because this is a different level for him. But I'm impressed. I thought he was fine. 14 and 5, I think.
Yeah,
really good.
exactly.
And, here's what he is. This is a dude that they haven't used him hardly at all the way they're going to use him either. Basically, he's playing spot-up shooter right now. What you're going to see down the road, you're going to see him do many more versatile things. Illinois didn't run. Did you see them run booty ball all night?
Not much.
No, I mean, Ivisic, they posted up. They didn't run a booty ball action all night. They're going to do that. They're really working on other things right now because they know they're going to beat EIU. But the other thing is you didn't see Rickhouse do any ball screen actions.
Right, exactly.
Can you imagine putting him with his skill level, and you put a power forward and a center trying to defend that ball screen with Ivisic setting the screen? Or you put a guard where you can get him switched onto a smaller player if they're switching. You can have Boswell's man or KJ's man who's smaller setting that screen. Now you set him up to get a booty ball against a mismatch. And he's so good in ball screens himself as the handler. He was like 97th percentile last year in the nation in ball screen as a ball screen ball handler. So you're going to see them use him different ways. You can't get too upset about or up or down about him right now. Like Marcus Damas last year started off kind of slow. Yep. And then you saw him, they found a role, they found where they fit because they're always trying to find a way to tweak things to make their offense a little bit better, defense a little bit better.
Trey White seems to be playing with a little less confidence than what I thought a player with his resume would play with. What did you notice up close there?
I think it's finding a role. I mean, what is your role? Practices are different, and he's been great in practice, but I think it's a little bit different because, you're not on they're not running actions. They're just playing basketball. In this one, they've used KJ in a lot of ball screens. Well, I mean, they didn't use Trey White in any booty ball, which is where he could excel. They didn't use him. He had a couple spot-up shots. Didn't really attack the rim. So you'd like to see him be, maybe attack the rim a little more, and those are things that we're going to see down the road, I think. But it's just finding your role and finding your niche. What is your job on this team? And with Ty Rodgers redshirting, I think this is a situation where he really needs to be, that guy, that kind of one of those dogs, that toughness guy who can rebound, he can play three, he can play four, whatever it is. And I think when that happens, when that kind of clicks and he figures out what his role is, I think he's going to be really good, really consistent guy that's going to bring it every day.
And one of the final questions, Dre Gibbs Lawhorn, obviously he's got EIU's number, but
wants to take it to him as dad's alma mater.
Yeah, exactly. But I got to be honest with you, his athleticism makes him somebody that I think can contribute throughout the year.
Well, his athleticism and his energy are things that you can't teach that. Though he's got great energy just because he likes to. He's got great attitude, great energy, and his athleticism is off the charts. He's just small, but yeah, I think Dre Gibbs Longhorn's going to be an important contributor all year long. And the thing is, that people have to understand, he's not going to score 21 points every game. Just like Will Riley's not going to score 31. They're going to have ups and downs because they're younger. They're not going to fit sometimes. Sometimes shots aren't going to fall. But what Draven Gibbs Longhorn is going to always give you is energy. He's going to give you defensive intensity. He's going to attack the glass. He's going to do all those little things, even when he's not scoring. And so I think the energy that he brings off the bench is huge.
I wanted to at least get your thoughts on a couple people before you get out of the cell phone range here. We haven't talked much about Kylan Boswell, Kerry Booth, or one of our favorites, Morez Johnson.
You put this in. Well, I thought Morez was, his 6 blocks and 8 rebounds were fantastic. I thought they were good. Just 6 rebounds and 8 blocks, or 8 rebounds, 6 blocks were great. I missed some free throws, but he'll get there. I think he was good. He's another one. Just his energy level is so crazy that that's what he brings. He attacks the glass on both ends. It was great. I thought Kylan Boswell. I don't know what people expect, and maybe they expect too much because all he does is, he's just a guy. He ran the team. He had 5 turnovers. I thought offensively he struggled a little bit, but I thought he guarded pretty well. And I know we're talking about him. He's able to tag his guy and things. So he's kind of he's important because of his defense, and it may not show up on the stat sheet all the time. But here's the thing: we know he's a proven shooter. He's going to get open looks. Guys like Will. 5 threes, and he's gonna knock down a large percentage. I would be surprised if he shot 40% from 3 this year as the year went on. And when he does that and he defends, that's a really valuable player.
Yep. Any final thoughts, Brad, as you're driving off into the night?
Yeah, into the torrential downpour here, the flooding everywhere.
Well, we sent that up from Texas.
No, I would say my thing is this team's a. Thanks. Appreciate it. It followed me from Kansas City. I thought he would. I thought this team shows a ton of offensive firepower, and that offensive firepower. But they're always playing against each other, so they didn't have They can do so many different things with lineups, with matchups. They can play small. They can play big. You even saw things from Kerry Booth. Jake Davis had a rough debut.
Yeah.
Had more fouls than anything. He had a rough debut. It's tough. But I thought you saw Booth do some good things. And then I thought, every guy had flashes where you saw them do some good things offensively or defensively, whatever it was. This team that has a lot of firepower. I would say that they're probably going to be a team that if someone does not want to draw in the NCAA tournament in March, because as they connect and get together and click, they're going to be awful good.
That's a great way to close the podcast, Brad. Thank you so much for coming on after interviewing the coaches and the players. We appreciate it. Folks, as we talked earlier, of course, IlliniGuys.com. You can subscribe for 27 cents a day. And again, that's $99 a year. And the most important thing you get, besides getting access to all of our stuff, besides the ability to get some things ahead of time, is you get the message boards where you can ask Brad, you can ask Ked, you can ask Matt, myself, Larry, questions. It is a fantastic component. It turns it from a one-way experience of sitting down and passively reading, watching, or listening, and it turns it into a two-way street. It does cost money to send people to go to New York to cover the game or go out to Oregon to cover the football game. We try to keep it as inexpensive as possible. We have not raised prices since we started, but if you want to join, it would be awesome. to have you join. It would be fantastic to have that happen. We would love to have more members. We're creating a community of Illini fans, and we do an awful lot of guy stuff. So we talk Big Ten, we talk NFL, we talk NBA, we talk baseball, a little bit of boxing, and of course, movies and TVs, because we're guys. That's what we do. And food. We also talk food because we eat. And I'm love pizza and we talk pizza. That's just what we do. So we'd love to have more people join. IlliniGuys.com. Go ahead and register. You get 6 days. On the 7th day, you get your credit card charged, but we would love to have you as part of our community. And of course, one final note before we roll out of here, if you have the opportunity, if you're watching this right now, you can follow Brad at Sturdy32, or you can follow Ked at KedPrince4, or you can follow me at Mike Cagley, Cagley, and you can get a lot of your Illini information and a lot of those things. And we promise we keep it all sports, all guy stuff. We don't do politics. We don't do that other stuff. So you want to have a good time. We think we can make it a lot of fun for you. And so thank you so much for joining. We will do everything we can to make sure we're on these. We do our halftime show, which is very brief to the point. And then we do this show where we will have this kind of staggered thing where we have Ked for a while, then we bring in Sturdy. Occasionally we'll bring in Matt, but we try to have some fun with it. And hopefully you enjoy it. That's what we want. So make sure you give us your feedback. And again, we would love to have more people as part of the IlliniGuys.com community. Until next time, folks, go Illini.